Opinions, viewpoints, and beliefs presented on this program do not necessarily reflect those of the management, the affiliates and broadcast partners, or the sponsors. Listener discretion is advised.
Scarefest Radio, the radio you can see.
And hello and welcome everyone to Scarefest Television for the original broadcast date of January 23rd, 2026. Scarefest 18.
Yep.
That was where I messed up on updating the FAQ. I forgot what number. I had the dates right, but I forgot that we have advanced one Scarefest, and I've lost count. So everybody, welcome to the show. Of course, tonight, Chad Harlan, Mr. Chad Harlan, is my co-host, returning to his former glory.
Good evening.
And me and Chad's been talking about the snowstorm and everything. Everybody, if you're not living in the 2/3 of the country that's going to encounter, Chad, do you realize this is like my third, fourth, maybe storm of the century?
Well, you know, how many centuries you got in already? That makes perfect sense.
Apparently, I'm racking them up. And, of course, our guest tonight, Katherine Hale-Stringfield, author and apparently, as we'll be discussing, a witch expert, because her seminars all involve witches. Joe is reviewing We Buried the Dead Tonight, and yes, everybody, at the bottom of the hour, 4 more celebrity on those bingo cards that we've been doing in the fan group. Somebody needs to put out a bingo card, wondering how long we can keep up that 4 celebrity per week announcement schedule. Because
3 and 1.
Three and one. Three for Scarefest, 1 for Spawn, and I just know how things work around here. I've been here too long. I know how things work. So anyway, bring Katherine back on. Katherine, welcome back to the show. Thanks.
It's wonderful to be here.
Okay, before we get started, first of all, I'm going to ask you the single most bullshit question you've ever been asked. Okay, just so you know, this even rises up there in my level of. I was looking up the description of your book and everything, and for about the third time in my life, I had to Google what a YA novel is. Young adult novel.
Yes.
I guess, why is that? How does Mary Lucktails, everybody, we're talking about Mary Lucktails real quick here. Mary Lucktails, your first of apparently a trilogy. How's the other 2 books coming out?
Book 2 should be out really soon.
What makes a novel a youth adult novel or young adult novel?
It's targeted towards that age group. I work in a high school.
That's vague.
Well, I'm trying. I'm getting there. It's targeted toward that age, but also the language and the situations are more young adult. It's not as like hardcore as, say, a Stephen King novel. I do have, my novels are horror, and I do stick to the standards. There's some really gory parts. But as far as like having a lot of explicit sex scenes or anything like that, that is just not in a young adult novel.
But okay, hear me out. Most of my good sex scenes were when I was a young adult.
Absolutely.
So I don't understand.
I know, and I'm sure there are novels that, and I try to keep up with that genre a lot because, I want to, stay fresh with kids at school and know what they're talking about. And they are getting a whole lot more racy than they used to be. Like I grew up reading Judy Blume and Sweet Valley High and those kind of books, Nancy Drew, the Hardy Boys, those were considered young adult novels, 30, 40 years
Yeah,
ago.
they were pretty lily white.
Yes, very much so. And so we've moved on, like the Vampire Diaries. That was a series of books. Pretty Little Liars. And where they still, those children, the main characters, they did have sex, but they didn't explicitly go, 50 Shades of Grey with it. It was very, very, I guess, just whitewashed, like you just said.
So
it's just watered down.
So you're saying my favorite reading material of the late 70s or early 80s, meaning Playboy and Penthouse Forum, I was ahead of my time. You're saying I was ahead of my time. Is that what you're telling me?
Yeah, well, I mean, and that material's out there. It's just that in order to be library friendly and parent friendly, you have to tone that down. So,
but these standards are relaxing because it's
Yes, okay. They are. Yes.
All right. No. Okay. I get. There's no way to ask that question and not be flippant about it. I don't think.
No, I mean that's just honestly though, because you find yourself wanting to be, true to the character, and I try not to use vulgarity or cuss words, but we cussed as kids all the time.
Yes. Yeah.
I mean,
I learned it on the school bus.
I mean, if it's necessary, I'm not going to leave it out of the dialogue. And, people are just going to have to live with it because they're like, I had a friend of mine at school that's another teacher read a part of my book. And she was like, I really liked it. But, the cursing and this and that and the other. And I'm like, first of all, you're from Harlan. And if you didn't grow up the same way I did, where everybody cussed, I don't know what to tell you. I was like, it wasn't uncalled for. I don't throw the F word in there just for thrills. There's a million words out there. Choose another one.
It should, it should be in the context of a complete sentence. That's my feeling on it.
Yes. But if it's warranted,
if you can't diagram it, don't use it.
Right. So no.
Okay. Now on to present day. Mary Love's Tales. You wrote it. I'm sure, and your trilogy is continuing that story.
Yes.
Your presentation was the whole granny witch thing. From Irish witches to what we got nowadays.
Mm-hmm.
What brought you? Which came first, chicken or the egg? You seem to have a fascination and a knowledge and done some research about witches and witchcraft.
Mm-hmm.
Did they lead to you writing the novels, or did the novels take you down the road to learn more about witchcraft?
I think that experience that I had, that's the true part of the book that I told you all that story last year about the 3 little kids that I saw, that sparked in me as a young child. I was 13, and growing up in the mountains, there's nothing a lot to do. And, ghost stories and things like that was thrilling. I grew up in the 80s. There was no internet or anything like that. So I wanted to see something unbelievable. And once I did, it kind of just took hold of me, and I wanted to see more. And so I've always been fascinated by the supernatural, anything. Like, I read Stephen King from the age of 12. I mean, I started reading it early. And so I always loved that thrill. It was a thrill. It's like, I wanted to see something. My mom told me when she was a kid, there was a lady that lived in the bottom, Crawdad Bottom, and she was known like gypsy, fortune teller. And she was having a seance at her house, and my mom says she peeked in the window and she saw the table walk. And I was like, I want to see that. I was like, are there witches? And so that's always been just something that has just fascinated me. And then reading all the stuff when I got older, I read The Crucible, and then, learned all the Salem witch trial stuff. And I was like, these witches must have been real, or they would not have killed these people. But then you realize, there was a lot more to it. And so, but there is an instance I'll talk about later if you want me to. And it kind of really, really makes you wonder.
Yeah, it was all politics. It was all politics.
Yes, they wanted their land.
See, okay, the only thing I would say about that is, okay, now I understand your fascination with the paranormal, the hairs on your back, your neck stand up, everything. But honestly, most of the witches that I know, the scariest thing they do is like trade recipes on the weekend.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're just people. They just
they're not flying on broomsticks,
yeah,
and
and damn few tables walking. Damn few tables walking.
Yes.
Chad, over to you.
Good evening. I'm excited to talk to you again.
Hey.
For those who didn't get to attend your presentation,
Mm-hmm.
why don't you give us a little bit of a summary of it? Tell everybody the
Okay.
title and kind of what subjects, and then we'll get a little deeper into it.
Okay. Okay. It was called The Scottish Witch Trials and the Evolution of Witches and Their Craft. From Scottish witch trials to Appalachian granny witches, because essentially the ladies that grew up in Eastern Kentucky in the 1700s and the 1800s were descendants of the people from Scotland. I mean, they settled in the mountains more prevalently than most. And since the Scottish witch trials, I mean, there was such a influx of just thousands of people were killed. These people fled for their lives, and religious prosecution, persecution, all of it. So that trickled down. I mean, they brought their ways with them, because most witches that were accused were just midwives. They were women. They were called a wise woman, and they were just people that helped in the community, and they were just had been passed down and passed down and passed down these healing ways of natural, herbs and everything in the town that was in your house, whatever. And they were looked upon as, saviors sometimes. I mean, more so than the doctor that came around with his, cruel tools. Sometimes, if she could whip you up something on the stove, and you drank something that made you feel better, but the one time that something goes wrong, then they're a witch. So it was very, very tricky for these women to actually, and brave of them, to want to be out in the community. I think I'd have just stayed at the house, and be like, nope, can't help you. I don't know anything about that. But so my presentation, basically, I go back to the time of the 1500s, whenever the Scottish Witchcraft Act, yeah, that's what it was called, went into effect, and it made it a capital crime to practice witchcraft and be accused of using any kind of witchcraft whatsoever. I mean, that was certain death. I mean, there was no in between. If you were convicted and it was found true, then you died.
There was a fine line between a pharmacist and a witch for a long time.
Yes, that's perfect. You said that perfectly. Absolutely. Very fine line.
We do go out further than Kentucky with this broadcast, so you used a term that everybody may not be familiar with, but you kind of touched on it: granny magic.
Yes.
Can you give us a little bit of a rundown of what that is?
Okay. Granny magic is basically a healer, usually 9 times out of 10. But there were some women that they might have been descended from, say, gypsies or other, than they would make potions, they would make charms, they would make they would give you, a little pouch of herbs and spices that you could wear around your neck, and it would make, Jim Paul down the road love you, so the granny witches, or granny magic, if we say magic, that was kind of the thing they were known for. You could go to them for, if you wanted to put a curse on somebody, if you wanted to hex somebody, if you wanted to, and most of that is all in your head. Somebody knew they had a hex put on them, everything's obviously gonna, psychologically now we can look at it and see it for what it was. But, you got to think back, these people didn't have access to that, and they were very superstitious to begin with. And so when you take into account this old woman that lives maybe up in the holler, at the head of the holler, and she lives alone, but she's always outside with a cauldron, and she's maybe probably making apple butter or something like that, but it's told that if you go to her, she can, there's what is it? Pray a ward away. Like if you had a ward, or you could, burn it. If you got burnt, like there was women that could pull the fire out of you. I interviewed a lady from North Carolina while I was doing my research for the thing, and she said she was descended from granny witches. And I met her on TikTok, and me and her Zoomed, and we talked for like an hour. And she said that she was one of those women that, they were considered granny magic and granny witches. And I thought that was fascinating. Absolutely fascinating. But I remember my
got them in my family.
I remember my mama, I had a wart on my leg or my finger or something, and she prayed it away, and there's little rituals you have to do to make sure that happens. And I mean, there's people that believe, and I think belief is more the magic more than anything. It's if you believe it, if you manifest it, like we say these days, it's the power of persuasion in your mind.
Absolutely. I've had more than one wart removed by rubbing a penny on it and burying it.
Yes, yes. See, I mean, it's just stuff like that. And I think that was all brought over from Europe, of course, I mean, because the gypsies have been around just as long, and they were just as persecuted as the witches were. I mean, there's a really thin line there between those two. And I think that's really what I want to focus on next year is the witches, the gypsies that they called in the mountains, they called them Scottish travelers. But they had the same wagons and the same, they sold, tonics and potions and tinctures and this and that and the other. And, you could buy a charm, you could buy a hex, you could, put all that stuff into play. And I think that's just fascinating. I don't know why, but I do.
Absolutely. We're coming up to our first break, though, so I'm going to go ahead and throw to that. We'll be right back in just a moment.
Okay.
Are you a fan of horror movies, books, comics, music, and collectibles? Roomorg magazine is for you. Subscribe today to receive 6 or 12 print issues annually and join me, executive editor Andrea Subisati, on an ongoing journey through the horror genre of the past, present, and future. Plus, get access to unmissable special editions such as A Century of Witches, 50 Years of Gore Cinema, British horror movies, and so much more. Roomorg, the world's premier horror and culture and entertainment magazine since 1997. Accept no substitute.
Welcome back, everybody, to Scarefest Television. Our guest tonight is author Katherine Hale-Stringfield. We're talking about Scottish witches and granny magic and all this good stuff. Appalachian granny witches. Okay. I understand the concept of them not liking the way things are going in Scotland.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously, a lot of us didn't. Came over here. Do you have any insight into why it seems so many of the ones that are at least were nowadays anyway are willing to embrace the whole granny magic blurb, the title? There's a lot of witches in the Appalachian Mountains is where I'm going with this. Now, That being said, and there's some others scattered about the country, but why'd they cross into the Appalachians and just stop?
I think because it reminded them of home. When they came to North Carolina and East Tennessee, East Kentucky, West Virginia, back home where I'm from, the hospital is called Highlands Regional Medical Center. And there's all kinds of places called the Highlands this, the Highlands that. And I think because the mountains were so seclusive and they are a clannish type of people, they want to stay amongst themselves, their ways, they had that in abundance here, without not being able to wear their plaids and not being able to do certain things. And they stayed secluded here. And I saw somewhere, and don't quote me, and I don't know if this is true or not, but apparently before the continent split, the Appalachian Mountains was part of the Scottish Highlands. So it's basically the same land. They said when it broke apart that
I've seen maps
the same mountain range.
They show the whole mountain range and you can trace it all over. Yeah. So I get that.
I mean, I don't know if that's true, but I mean, think about it. That would make that the same land. It'd be maybe raised the same
It's
time.
as good of an explanation as I could expect. I'll put it that way.
That's my
I just thought, see, my whole theory about, and I've said this on the air 100 times, the listeners are tired of hearing it. I think most of us that live in Kentucky, we were just had a little bit of a lazy streak, and after we came over the mountains, we said, "That's it. That's as far as we're going. That's it."
Yeah, it's beautiful here. Let's just stay.
But at the same time, witchcraft in general seems to, I guess well, it's obvious. You hear about it more. I think it's the same people. I just wonder, 20 years ago, 30,
Mm-hmm.
gosh, Wesley, it's 2026, 40, 50 years ago. I forgot when I
Right.
graduated high school. You did not hear anybody embrace the term witch. That just was
Mm-mm.
not something that happened. But I just wonder if those people really, the people that, the equivalency of people now, I'm just wondering, did they know their background? Was that just something they kept to themselves? Or, do you understand what I'm saying? This is a really
Yeah.
awkward question.
I mean, I think if you were the lady I talked to from North Carolina, I mean, that was something that was passed down through her family. They didn't hang a shingle out and say I'm the local witch or anything like that. But, I think that still, like, even, where I grew up, I mean, there was whispers about this person or that family or, this, just little things that,
Mhm.
but it wasn't something that you advertised. And it was still secretive even then. I mean, you only sought those people out if you had ill thoughts, I guess, if you wanted something bad done, I guess. Because I kind of write about that in my next book. there's a really, really, that's why I'm saying this is like, I mean, I personally did not know anybody like that growing up at all. I mean, nobody that I knew of, except for that one lady my mom talked about. And she was dead when I was a kid. So I don't know. I didn't never meet her that I know of. But I'm sure there's people out there. I mean, because, I mean, where I grew up, I mean, I was not in the furthest reaches of the holler by any means. I mean, there was a lot of more places that were a lot more secluded. I'll just say that word. Those people never really got out much at all. They raised their own food and, they didn't really have a need to unless they really wanted to.
Well, here's what I can tell you. I remember driving into Gatlinburg and the little psychic shop that sat right on the main road there as you went in, fortune teller. And I thought that was the coolest thing in the world because I knew no fortune tellers back in the 80s and 90s. I knew nobody that claimed to be able to do that. Now I know a buttload of people.
I mean, you got called with tarot cards, you were evil,
Yeah.
I mean, I grew up, my grandma spoke in tongues and, we went to church and, when I got that Ouija board for Christmas, I mean, she lost her mind. I mean, it was.
I got one sitting in the corner. My sister gave it to me like my 10th birthday. Nobody thought anything about it.
No, it was by Parker Brothers or, something like that. And I never thought anything about that. But when I got it, I didn't even know what it was. I'd never seen one or heard of one. So.
Over to Chad.
Kind of building off what Wes was saying, I know growing up, and I'm from Lexington, but most of my family's from Whitesburg, so
Right.
we've got the connections to the hills too. I know there was a lot of people that referred to the healers, and I know, like Wes was kind of saying, now we talk about witches. Do you have any thoughts on, kind of, are they the same group? Is it really just kind of a terminology thing that we've kind of embraced more? Or do you think there's a difference between the traditional healers that we think about and I know in my family a lot of them claim that it was knowledge passed down from the Indians that were there before.
Yes.
And you hear that. But is it really a different thing, or do you think the healers just kind of are more accepting of the witchcraft label now than they used to be?
I think it's a little of both. I mean, I think it's more palatable now to be a granny witch as opposed to just the midwife or the healer, or using granny magic as opposed to witchcraft. Magic sounds better than witchcraft, and because I mean, most people that were termed that, let's say 100 years ago, these people went to church. So you didn't want to be known as the witch, you were the healer or the midwife, or something like that, because doctors were scarce, and people were happy to have a woman that was experienced in, delivering children, or, curing a cough, the croup, or, something like that could kill you. I mean, my mom had a brother that died of was it the thrush, or is it thresh or thrush? Something like that. Something that's like totally curable right now,
Yeah.
but this was in the 30s, and had there been somebody around to come, and help, they would have gotten them. I mean, they would have, even in that, the 1900s, they would have done that. And especially, I mean, which we lived close to town. I mean, we were like 5 minutes from Prestonsburg, 5 miles. We could have went to the hospital, but I mean, they couldn't save this baby, and that's crazy now. You think about that's something that's like, here's an antibiotic, but penicillin wasn't rolling off the shelves like it was now. But I really feel like that, as far as like the labeling and what they're known as now, and I think it depended on the person. If you were this kind of godly woman that did go to church, nobody was going to call you a granny witch. You were going to be the granny healer. But now, if you was a woman that didn't go to church, maybe you've been married more than once, or had a child out of wedlock or something like that, then you were the granny witch. I really think it had a lot to do with your reputation and your standing amongst town. I think that had a huge amount to do with it. I mean, personally, like I said, I didn't live it during those times, but just knowing my people the way that I do, I can totally see that being the criteria for which one you was going to be labeled as.
Absolutely. Makes perfect sense. Um, so your presentation was Scottish witches to granny magic. So kind of lead us down the path of the connections and how the Scottish tradition is the same or different. I know certainly a lot of the people in the region have Scottish and Irish descent. So was there a lot of changes, do you think? Or do you think it's still picking up on a lot of the same tradition?
I think a lot of the traditions were passed down if you were somebody of that, descent. But nowadays we've got so much more knowledge, and but I recently bought a book, and it was home remedies, and it was telling you how to make home remedies out of everyday items, things that are probably growing out in my backyard right now, instead of going with the, pharmaceutical company brand of something. And and I've loved that. And I'm like, is that part of my heritage? Because I'm drawn to that, because, that was what my ancestors did. And, because when I was a child, I used to go green picking with these old ladies, and I knew all the plants around me. And I mean, I grew up in the head of the holler. I mean, literally going barefoot till I had to go to school, and they made me put shoes on, But, I think as far as like the Scottish witches and the Scottish ladies, I mean, the Highlands was very wild, compared to, say, Edinburgh, or what's the other one? I'm going blank here. Inverness, or any of the cities in Scotland. When you got to the Highlands, that's when you had the rugged people, people that lived, on craggy hills, and, they had little valleys, I guess, that they lived on and in and stuff like that. And they were very superstitious people. And they were superstitious when they went to battle. They were superstitious when you had a baby. There were some of them, like there was one lady in town that was like really like the eldest woman, that maybe the wisest woman, she had to come and spit on your baby or it wasn't going to live, I mean, so it was, just traditions like that. And I've heard of that before, growing up, I've heard of that. And I thought that was so weird. I was like, there's no way I'm going to
let me from now on. I just got to say it. Go ahead.
Yes, Wes. Say, if I don't spit on your baby, it can't live. I mean, that's just it sounds preposterous now, but it wasn't then. Again, it was a superstition. So I think those things did carry on a lot, because after the Battle of Culloden, all of the people that fought against England, most of them were sent to prisons. They were offered prison sentences or to be sent to America. And a lot of times they were indentured when they did get sent. So that meant they had, 7 years of servitude to pay off their debts, or, and they were stripped of all of their clan identity. They couldn't wear their plaids. They, couldn't represent anything that was clan at all. And so I think bringing that wisdom with them was their way of, keeping their clan alive. It was their way of their history and their heritage, because God knows how long that clan had been there, forever. I mean, compared to our history here, it's nothing. It's a blink of the eye compared to, England and Scotland and Ireland and all of that, anywhere in Europe, basically. But I think that was their kind of like stubborn way of saying, okay, well, we're going to bring this with us. We're bringing our songs with us. That stuff they couldn't take away from them. They couldn't take away the way that they spoke, and there's a discussion that Eastern Kentucky has the purest form of the Old English language. I've heard that from several sources. And, we did stay secluded until the coal companies came in and brought outside influence and built up all the little towns they had. They were very clannish. There's the Wells family back home. Everybody's related to them. Everybody. It's like when they have their reunion, they have to have it at Johnson Central High School in the gym because there's so many people that's related to them. Johnny Depp's our fourth cousin, my mom says, so who knows? I said, me and about 500 other people, probably.
As far as the language, I still had my great-grandparents were still using thee and they. Thee and thy and they, and the language had not evolved.
No.
But yeah, it makes sense that so much other tradition came with them too. And thank goodness they brought the whiskey too.
Yes, they brought that whole thing too. Yes, they did. For sure.
But we're at the bottom of the hour, so I'm going to toss to Wes to give us some announcements.
Announcements. A terrible death to die. A terrible death to die. A terrible death, a terrible death, a terrible death to die. Announcements.
Song to end. Professional production here, Chad. Professional production. Everybody, don't forget, Scarefest weekend tickets go on sale February 1st, 2026. February 1st, tickets go on sale. I think the official time's 7 p.m., maybe, something like that. Anyway, so watch our social media to get your tickets. And let's get into some guest announcements. First up, we're expanding our Christine lineup. Please welcome our favorite bully, William Ostrander, appearing as Buddy in Christine. Therefore, the little hint that Brandon posted on social media. I did not even catch it, and I knew who we were bringing. If you're a fan of that film, this is a great addition to that lineup. We know Christine is looking forward to the reunion. Next, we're adding another name from a cult classic favorite. Joining director Fred Decker, we're excited to welcome Steve Marshall, who played JC in Night of the Creeps. And speaking of legends, the next guest truly needs no introduction, but he has the longest one on the page, incidentally. Joining us again this year is Greg Nicotero, legendary makeup and effects artist, director, and one of the most influential writers in horror history. This is a huge one for Scarefest. Be on the lookout for an announcement about his private dinner event hosted at Nick and Norman's. And before we were done, let's get one more announcement in. This is a great one for Spawn of Scarefest. Yes, joining us for Spawn, please welcome Andrew Divoff, best known as the Djinn from Wishmaster. If you like horror, dark fun, and just a little bit of dangerous, you're going to want to be there for this one. And that's it for tonight for the announcements. We do want to tell you that if you want to host a workshop, seminar, that type of thing, limited spaces, but Spawn of Scarefest is going to have some workshops. We're taking applications now. You can go to spawnofscarefest.com or there's a tiny URL. tinyurl.com/spawn programming. That is such a great idea putting that on there. And tonight, right after Scarefest TV, at about 10:15 Eastern Standard Time, Let's check out the live after party episode on YouTube of Fear the Talking Heads. They are discussing entry-level horror for kiddos. These films are PG-13 to ease the young ones into the genre without scarring them for life. Participation in the chat is welcome with Eric Hyde as host. Go to YouTube, search for @Fear the Talking Heads. Fear the Talking Heads. All right. Back to our guest tonight, Katherine Stringfield. Okay. Now, This is where some of this kind of bothers me because I feel like I've lost my roots. Forsyth is a Scottish name. Okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
I got no history. I got no Scottish traditions. A little bit of red hair in my beard. That's what I got Scottish. Now looking back on it, like my mom always said, when you get stung by a bee, you rub 3 kinds of weeds on it. I don't think the 3 kinds of weeds had anything to do with it. I think it was just a vigorous rubbing action made the pain go away. But I will say now, my dad, when he passed away of cancer quite a while back, but my friend Cody Chris Sutton made him a medicine bag. Of course, that's American Indian tradition. My dad accepted it, no questions. In other words, I don't know. I never thought about I was worried about giving to my dad. He's like, "What? Who the hell are you hanging out with?" But I wonder why the traditions, as you've described it, grew such roots in the mountains, and my people walked an extra 60 miles, and we're out here farming, and I got nothing.
It might be because we have more access to more herbs. You think?
I don't know. Seriously.
We're very, very ingenious when it comes to using what's around you. I grew up, you didn't throw anything away. There was a use for something.
Some of that, okay. Programmed into me big time. And although she got a German name. I don't know where she got it from. But I almost feel, it sounds like I'm trying to be funny, but I feel kind of left out in that I know my people came from the city. Now, maybe we were city folks. Who knows? Maybe we were in the flatlands, growing, potatoes were Irish. I don't know what Scottish people grew. I have no idea. And that's my point. Nothing in my life that I know of, other than just apparently some genetic weirdness, has anything to do with Scotland. But I know that's where the name came from.
Right.
And you mentioned about the clans, whatever it was that, they had to disband the clans. Yeah, the clan Forsyth was disbanded, and then only, I forget what year it was, they allowed them to go back and so my family had every reason to drag that shit across the ocean with them and didn't do it.
Maybe they were just done with it. Maybe they wanted to embrace America. I don't know. A new start.
That works. That actually. Well, we did walk the extra hour and a half to get into the hill country versus the highlands. But that is something that, because talking to you about it, of course, the 3 Appalachian witches, I talked to them. So in other words, somehow I'm becoming well versed in witchcraft, but spending this time talking about Scotland and the connection to Scotland, it kind of makes me wonder why. Yeah, so I realize you have no insight into that. I just wanted to make that observation that I'm just out here floating by myself.
Well, maybe you should find your plaid, make you a kilt.
I know that I've looked up. Me and Chad were talking about it before the show. I'm wearing a kilt in roughly my clan colors. It wasn't that big of a clan, so nobody's going to stop and But it's green with a little hint of red in it, and I'm wearing a kilt to Spawn of Scarefest for the prom.
Nice.
Chad's worried my socks wouldn't be authentic. I actually have authentic socks, Chad. I don't even know why I have them. But I was going through my socks the other day, and I have a pair that look authentic. I just got to get the little purse that they hung on their socks or whatever it was.
Oh, flashes. They're called flashes.
No, that's what happens when you bend over in a kilt. Chad, over to you.
It's called a squirrel, Wes.
A what?
Hey.
And the flashes go on the socks
Oh, the socks.
with your
yes.
dagger.
Yeah,
Or your dirk.
my
I'm an Outlander fan. I can't help myself.
So you mentioned that you're starting to work on a book, and I know we talked a little bit about at the beginning about your previous book, but kind of give everybody who didn't see the first episode where we talked to you a little bit of a rundown of what the book series is about.
Okay. It is set in 1984 in a fictional town of Maryland that's loosely based on where I grew up, and it's spawned from an event that happened when I was 12 or 13. I'm sorry, I was 13. Something true that happened that scared me to death, and I never forgot it. So I kind of built this whole town and this whole story of this girl that once she turns 13, she inherits these powers, witch powers, and she's messing around having seances with her friends, just goofing off, and she actually opens the door to the other side, and this witch comes through that's had a curse on the town for 100 years. And so once that happens, she ends up having to battle the witch at the end. And it takes, like, she's got all these old men in town, like that's what we had. Well, all of our papaws would come and tell us ghost stories in the evenings. And so her and her friends find out where they go and tell the real ghost stories. And so they hide up in the loft, and they get these stories every month, once a month. And so the book kind of follows that first. And so you're getting this background information on the town and all the people as they're eavesdropping on their elders. We call them the yarn spinners. And so later on that comes into play, and the whole town has to pretty much help her beat this witch, right? So it's kind of like a whole effort of everybody. And I throw in all kinds of like pagan stuff, like the May Day festival was a big deal. We used to still play with we did the maypole when I was a kid, and that's stuff that like they don't do that anymore. And again, that was probably something left over from our Scottish heritage. But anyway, so the book series ends up, she battles this witch. So in part 2, she has to go to hell, literal hell, and get her friends back. And so the book goes through, we have to go battle this older witch that's descended kind of from the one that was here before. And so there's all kinds of going back and forth. And I really delve into how am I going to get her in hell and back out? And that took a lot of doing. It really did. It was because I didn't want to go too Greek, and I didn't want to have the river Styx and all that. So she ends up finding a portal into hell through a coal mine.
That seems appropriate.
Yes, because you're digging all this coal out, so there's actually going to be a portal in this coal mine that allows her to do that. And so then there'll be the third and final book that'll tie in. I don't want to give too much away, but
no.
Yeah,
just
that
give everybody enough to know that it's out there, and let them know where can they buy it.
It'll be on Amazon, and then if you see me in person, I'll have it. I'm at a lot of festivals, and I'll be at Spawn of Scarefest. So hopefully it'll be out by then. I'm really hoping and praying it will be. That's my goal, is to get that out before. I want it out before Easter, because the book takes place from Christmas to Easter, and now's like the best time to be reading it. I'm a seasonal reader. That's just, I like to read stuff as it is outside, so that would be perfect if I can get it out in the next month, and that's probably doable. So I'm hoping.
Good. I'll look forward to seeing it.
Yeah.
We are at our last break, so we're going to toss to that, and we'll be right back.
Hey, Scarefest fans, this is Joe Lewis of Bonehead Weekly, and this is one of those that I caught kind of during my holiday break, the Christmas break, with a good friend, Crutchfield. And it was a movie I didn't know anything about. I hadn't heard a thing, didn't know anything, blah, 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 blah. And he was like, "You want to see a movie with me?" And I said, "Yes." He says, "A horror film, you can review it for Scarefest." I was like, "Great." Didn't ask any questions. He told me where to show up. And I was really surprised, because a lot of times I know a little bit going into it. This one I didn't know jack about. I saw the poster and I looked, oh, Daisy Ridley's in this, and you would know her from That's right, the new Star Wars film. So this week's review is We Bury the Dead. It's an Australian film, and I really enjoyed it. It's kind of a zombie film, so I'm going to read exactly what they posted online as the description. After a catastrophic military disaster, the dead don't just rise, they hunt. Ava searches for her missing husband, but what she finds is far more terrifying. Ava is played by Daisy Ridley. And this movie is directed by a guy named Zach Hilditch. Zach Hilditch did a movie I really liked a few years ago called 1922. It's based on a Stephen King short story, but that's beside the point. I really like this movie. The third act's much, but that description of this movie is not quite correct. Is it a zombie film? Basically, so I'm break it down to you. We find out that this electronic magnetic pulse, or what EMP, goes out, fries all the animals on Tasmania and the people really quick. The U.S. screwed it up and killed a bunch of people. And people from all over the world are flying to Tasmania to help clean up. And then they started hearing rumors about some of them waking up. This isn't Dawn of the Dead, either version. This isn't and attacking. This isn't attacking. This movie is very much what you would assume would happen if this happened in reality, as in people have to come across the world to help clean up. There's a lot of dead people. The appliances have to be turned off. Houses need to be cleaned out, etc., etc. And she's looking for her husband because he was there during a conference, and now she wants to see if he's the one that came back. And she is in love. And then as we go, we find out the reason why. And it's fairly easy to figure out. So she gets joined by another guy, and they sneak off during this because it's where her husband is not being cleaned up yet. And she discovers that, maybe some good people, real people, people who aren't zombies or bad people. Nothing in this is shocking. The twist at the end I saw coming from a mile away, but it did not really prevent me from enjoying this. This is not a zombie movie with a bunch of blood and guts. There is some blood and stuff, but it really isn't that kind of film. It's not overly violent. What it is about a woman dealing with her past, dealing with her love of her son, or her love of her husband, how we deal with grief, and how we all deal with grief. This movie is really about that, dealing with regret, dealing with mistakes that you've made, and how you get through them, and how you go about the rest of your life and keep on living your life, because it doesn't stop, it doesn't end. No matter how sad or depressed you are, it just kind of keeps going. That's what this movie's about, and I like that very much. But it plays out during a zombie film, kind of. So, should you see They Bury the Dead? Absolutely, you should totally see They Bury the Dead. And when it comes out on streaming, it only played for a few weeks in the theater. I wouldn't even have known about it, but We Bury the Dead, not They Bury the Dead. Check it out. It's a really good movie. I really enjoyed it. It's a little sad in parts, but I think you'll like it. This has been Joe Lewis of Bonehead Weekly.
Scarefest TV ends January with Wes and Barb talking to special guest Lachlan Monroe. Lachlan is best known for his comedic roles in films like A Night at the Roxbury, Scary Movie, and White Chicks. His acting career began after a serious sports injury ended his dream of playing professional hockey. He has since appeared in numerous genre films, including Freddy vs. Jason, showcasing his versatility. Monroe remains active in the entertainment industry, cementing his enduring presence in cult and horror film circles.
And welcome back, everybody, to the final few moments of Scarefest Television with our guest, Katherine Hale-Stringfield. We were talking during the break when Katherine was telling the story about the girl going to hell, and I know the area that she's from. First thing popped in my head was Danville. The girl had to go to Danville. So anyway, Katherine, are you ready for the impending storm of doom?
Oh, Snowmageddon. Yes, I am. We've been prepping, and then I was telling my daughter about driving through the blizzard of 93, which they're liking in this one too. But yeah, I mean, we've done all we can do. I mean, and in Kentucky, you never know. We might end up with 2 inches. We might get 2 feet. See, now you actually, where you're down there, you might only get a couple, but your big thing is you're talking about the ice. I know. I'm in Berea, so it's like, ugh. Oh yeah, I think it was 2009 the last time we got the really bad ice storm here, and we were out of power for over a week, and we don't even live that far from town. I mean, we're not like way out, in the sticks. So yeah, I'm really worried about that. That's my main thing. I don't want to lose power. It can snow all it wants to. I've got food. I've got everything I need. So yes, I'm just dreading the ice if we get that.
So I've still got 15 cases of 2020 toilet paper left over from that. So I figure I'm covered there. Chad sitting high on the hog with his home generator.
Don't tell everybody that, Wes. Everybody will show up at my house.
Yeah. You big shot, you.
Hey, when you're shopping for a new house, choose wisely. Look for the right amenities.
That's okay, because I'll be down here having French toast with my toilet paper. Milk, egg. We got tons of eggs. Yeah, because chickens. So,
well, if it gets down to 10 degrees like they're talking about, you're going to have to bring them inside anyway, so they'll be convenient.
Chickens are hardy animals. They have no blood in their feet, unlike me, who walks out the door and cries. Yeah, no, chickens do just fine in cold weather. My 15-year-old dog, not so much, but that's a whole nother story. So everybody, as we close the show out, I do want to tell everybody, if you're in the 2/3 of the country that's going to experience this winter storm, wish you the best, and be careful out there and all that good stuff. Catherine, looking forward to seeing you at Spawn. So everybody, don't forget, she will have a booth there that you can stop by and get, I'm sure, an autographed copy of her book.
Absolutely.
And if you're not coming to Spawn, type her name in on Amazon. That's, although if you type her name in, also the publisher comes up. So yeah, not that hard to find.
Yes.
Not that hard to find, but good luck with, and so the next book's almost ready, you say?
Yes, I'm hoping within the next month it'll be out.
What stage, knowing nothing about how a book gets written, what stage are you in? Is it like down, and now you're just proofreading stuff, or?
Yes, it's been edited and it's getting formatted now. So I've already got the cover. I've got everything's ready to go. I'm just waiting on the person that's going to format it for me and stuff, and we can just hit that upload button and it'll be on Kindle or be on Amazon.
and I understand that tonight probably some of the ones on YouTube, but yeah, some of Catherine's youngins from down in the area. We're supposed to listen tonight, so I hope we didn't corrupt anyone. I hope I don't make your job harder.
Oh, believe me, it won't. I promise.
So everybody, be safe out there. Have a great night. Chad, thanks for co-hosting. Catherine, thanks for doing the show. We will see you next week.
My pleasure. Anytime.